Okay, everyone, and we are back with Limor Kesem, and Limor is on the phone with us from RSA Security. And as Limor mentioned earlier in the program today, most of our RSA employees are out at the RSA. I guess it's an international conference these days. It's no longer a national conference, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's turned out to be the big dog out there all over the country. And Lamar is going to expand a little bit more on the merchant exploitation of the checking of compromised credit cards. Should have mentioned a few types of checking methods and how merchants can know they're being exploited. All right, so Lamar, why don't you just take it up a little bit with the second segment here and see if you can give people some ideas out there.
okay, great. So the first part of the merchant exploitation we were talking about was checking cards one by one. So saying that fraudsters are able to do that, whether it be over the phone, sometimes they call a number and feed in the card's information and see if it's going to go through for a small amount or for pre-authorization. And they do that a lot with merchants that belong to chain stores. And we've seen them doing that with Home Depot and with other different Bed Bath and Beyond, etc. And so we know that fraudsters are able to do a pre-authorization, and we have been warning merchants that they can look at what's going on in terms of pre-authorizations get abandoned. If they see that sort of log, then they can assume that perhaps there is some sort of fraud happening through them, because they're unaware most of the time that they're being abused by fraudsters. So if not over the phone, they check them over the internet, whether it be through as well checkout services like, for example, Google or Yahoo Wallet. They try to attach cards to different services to see if the card is valid and check the type of errors that they receive, and that way they can conclude if the card is valid or not. Now, when we're talking about the infrastructures of checking cards that allow fraudsters to really check a very large number of cards at the same time, we're talking about a service offered in the underground a lot of times where there's a website and there's a window they can feed in a bunch of credit card numbers into. And they just go into this platform. A lot of times it's based out of Russia or based out of the Ukraine. And they feed in all the information. The checker is usually something that can cycle through compromised merchant IDs on a weekly basis, trying to avoid detection. So every time it checks a certain number of cards, it switches merchant in order to keep the police guessing. Basically, they cannot narrow in on the checker, and either way, the checkers are compromised, so they could be legitimate merchant IDs and legitimate traffic also coming from them. When testing the cards, the merchant information, for example, the name, the location, the ID code changes, and there's usually no association to fraud with the merchant, so it makes the police's job even harder. So far?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm following along with it. As a matter of
Very
fact, you've
quiet
got
today, Joe. I'm very surprised. I'm used to you asking me questions.
no. I am actually listening to this because it becomes very important. Lamore, we've got some of our college graduate students working on a point of sale project right now. So I am listening intently as to this whole credit card thing because we've purchased a point of sale system that the students are tearing apart, and they're dying to dig into the system a little bit more and see if any sensitive information was left on the system. But I'm making them really slow down a little bit and document each part of the process of getting into this machine, trying to find out as much about it before they can actually do that. But we'll be very interested in seeing what kind of information is up on the machine, and that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of listening to your conversation intently today. And Phil has also come up on the chat, and he's put out a kind of a hint to small businesses. It's a small business hint to combat credit card fraud. Do you post your authorization checking backup telephone number and ID code where customers can see them? Maybe that's something that you shouldn't be doing. you know, so uh,
Like I was,
so I mean, all of this is very, very pertinent and all very, very relevant. And you're the subject matter expert over there, so I'm listening intently.
I see what you said. Perfect. As I was saying a little earlier, when it comes to the test amounts that fraudsters typically use, they would, when they're checking a batch, they usually specify one amount. So if the merchant sees the same amount over and over from different cards, or sees that cards are failing the ABA verification, or whatever the case may be, when they're seeing transactions that are multiple and seem very strange, they can begin suspecting that their merchant ID has been compromised and actually inform either their provider or even inform the police. So I'll give you an example of some amounts that are very often checked as like $1.25 and then $1.26, $1.27, $1.37, etc. And then so it's something that pops up to the eye when you're looking at a transaction log, especially if they're checking many cards at the same time. And at that point, what helps banks prevent fraud is by knowing that cards are showing interaction with a specific merchant in a specific amount should be blocked for fraud or closely monitored in order to prevent the fraud from actually happening. And they can look at transactions in general on that card, and if the transaction does not look like something that the genuine customer would purchase, then they can block it in advance.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like we talked about this a while back. It's I think the term is behavioralistics, where
Yes, behavioral detection as well.
yeah.
They check behavioral deviance. They see if the card, the genuine card holder would typically make that sort of purchase, or if that purchase is being made somewhere where it's the same state or the same city.
Yeah, so it is pretty cool what they can do today, and how they do monitor these things, and how technology has come a long way in helping them do that. But even so, with that, there's tens of millions of dollars of fraud going on every single day across the world, and we rely on people like RSA and other companies out there to kind of help us, bring that number down lower and lower and lower each and every day. Hey, listen, before we say goodbye to you, because we're running a little bit long on this stretch, any news coming out of RSA out here in the U.S.?
Sorry, I did not hear you.
Any new news coming out? Is RSA putting out any press releases? Any new information coming out?
Actually, yeah, through the RSA conference, they're putting out press releases about research that has been done with companies lately. We're releasing very soon a blog post about a new Trojan called the Citadel Trojan, so we're going to have something rather elaborate about that on our blog probably this week. And I think that's it for now.
All right, that's great. Limor Kesem, RSA Security Division of the Security Division of EMC, and that's the Fraud Research Labs over in Israel. Thank you very much for coming on the program today. And Limor, if you've got any tidbits yourself or any of your colleagues about what's going on out at RSA, certainly do send it over to me, and we'll put that out to our folks here at InfraGard in New York City, and keep them apprised of what's going on as well. Conference is very big. RSA has really built it up over the years, and we certainly do appreciate it. All right, Limor, have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. Bye now. All right, everybody.